So, the talk about Ilia Topuria moving up to 155 has been really interesting. Initially, he said he'd like to fight any top contender in the division. Islam Makhachev, the reigning lightweight champion, was pretty clear in his response, saying if Topuria wants a title shot at lightweight, he needs to prove himself with at least one win in the division first. But then, things got a little bit murky. We started hearing Islam's team saying that if the UFC offered them Topuria, they'd take the fight without hesitation. That made it seem like the fight could actually happen. But then boom, we find out that Ilia Topuria turned down a fight with Arman Tsarukyan, a legitimate top contender at 155. And why? Because he doesn't feel like he should have to earn his shot. That's a bold stance to take, especially in a division as stacked as lightweight. And now, Islam's camp is back to their original stance, saying he does need to fight at 155 before getting a title opportunity. And then you got Charles Oliveira outright declining a fight with Ilia, which just adds another layer to the situation. This kind of leaves Topuria in a weird spot because if he isn't fighting Islam or Oliveira, who is he fighting? And that's the real question, because if neither the champ nor the former champ wants that fight, it means Ilia has to face a legitimate lightweight contender, which brings us to the real issue. Should he have been considered for a lightweight title shot in the first place? And look, I already know a lot of fans are going to say, of course he deserves it. He knocked out Alex and Max. Give him the title shot. And honestly, that's where I'm kind of torn. There's a solid argument for why he doesn't necessarily deserve one right away. I get that some people are disappointed we're not getting Islam versus Ilia, but honestly, I think that's totally fine. I'd argue that Ilia hasn't actually earned that fight yet. And look, dude, I get it. Ilia's coming off a huge win over Alex Volkanovski. He's got that undefeated record, and yeah, he absolutely cooked Max Holloway before that. But does that really justify an immediate shot at the lightweight title? Not at all, in my opinion, because dude, Topuria just won the featherweight belt. That's it. He didn't have some legendary reign at 145. He didn't defend the title multiple times. He won the belt from Volkanovski and has only had one title defense. That doesn't scream double champ material yet. If we're comparing this to Volkanovski, he had to clear out the featherweight division before getting his shot at Islam. He defended his belt 5 times. He beat Holloway 3 times, took Ortega out, Yair Rodriguez, and TKZ. He was a dominant champion for years. And look, man, I'm just tired of these guys moving up without actually proving themselves as a dominant champion. I mean, Conor did it, others have done it too, and now Ilia thinks he should get a free pass too. If you don't have at least 4 or 5 title defenses, you shouldn't even be thinking about moving up. Winning the belt once and defending it once isn't enough to justify skipping the line at a whole new weight class. I'm actually glad that the UFC is finally putting their foot down and saying we don't want double champions. I mean, they might consider it if someone completely cleared out their division, but that's got to be rare. Like, take Merab for an example. If he beats Sean O'Malley, then he takes out the winner of Corey versus Figgy. At that point, you can argue that he's done enough to move up and challenge for the featherweight belt, whether that's Volk or Lopez. But unless a champion dominates a division like that, I get why the UFC is hesitant on handing out these champion versus champion opportunities. And I know some of you guys are screaming at me right now, saying that Ilia Topuria knocked out both Volkanovski and Max Holloway, and that's impressive. But I'm screaming back at you. But that doesn't automatically mean he deserves a title shot at lightweight. Not even close. Look, I get it. Both Volk and Max are considered the best featherweights of all time. But let's not forget what Volk had to do to even get his shot at 155. He cleared out a division, defended his belt 5 times, and then he moved up. Meanwhile, Topuria chose not to fight Volk again, didn't take the Diego Lopez fight, and act like he cleaned out the division already, which is kind of laughable. Featherweight still has life in it. You've got Movsar Evelev on the rise. You got interesting matchups with Yair, Pitbull, and plenty of other contenders that make the division far from settled. And I see a lot of people blaming Islam for not taking the fight. They're saying that he's ducking and all this other stuff. But honestly, I don't really blame him. Because let's be real, Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria does nothing for Islam's career overall. If Islam wins, all people are just going to say, oh, you just be another featherweight. That was the biggest criticism after he beat Volkanovski. And yeah, Volk is an incredible name to have on your resume. But that was already 2 fights against a guy who's moving up to 145. Taking on another featherweight, just putting him on the same spot again, it's a high risk, low reward situation for him. Now let's stop for a second and let's think about where Islam is in his career. He probably doesn't have that many lightweight title defenses left before he decides to move up to 170. He's already talking about it, and we know lightweight champions don't stick around forever. So if that's the case, why waste one of his last defenses on another featherweight moving up? Islam wants legacy fights. He wants to prove that he's the best lightweight, not just being guys coming from different divisions. That's why his names like Charles Oliveira or Dustin Poirier actually make sense. Charles is a legacy opponent, and while Dustin might not fully deserve that shot based on the rankings, he's still a massive name who's done a lot at 155. Those fights would actually mean something for Islam's career. Now, if we look at Islam's last fight against Renato Moicano, that fight didn't belong in that title picture at all. Moicano didn't deserve to be in there. And if Islam fought Topuria, it's the same situation. It just doesn't do anything for the lightweight legacy. So if we're talking about what's next, don't give Justin Gaethje a title shot yet. Arman versus Justin should be the fight to make in a title eliminator, because let's be real, Islam is probably not competing until Abu Dhabi in October. That gives the division time to sort itself out, and by then a clear lightweight contender will be ready to go. Now, if Islam's going to defend his belt, it needs to be against a real lightweight contender, not another guy moving from 145. Now, if you ask me, Charles versus Ilia is the fight to make. It's the only one that really makes sense, and look, if Topuria wins that fight, I'm all in on him getting a title shot. Now, as for Charles, he's got no excuse. When you look at the top 5, this is the only matchup that fits. It has to be Topuria versus Oliveira next. With that being said, I find Ilia moving up to 155 is super interesting. Even if he's not fighting for the title right away, just seeing how he matches up with these bigger, stronger guys is going to tell us a lot. We've seen him at lightweight once in the UFC against Jai Herbert, and in that fight, he faced some real adversity. So I'm really curious to see how much he improved since then, because obviously he leveled up a lot. But can he handle the bigger dudes? That's the real question. Because at 145, Topuria looked like a tank, stocky, powerful, and physically dominant. But at lightweight, that advantage might not be there. A lot of these guys are walking around 180 plus pounds before cutting to 155. Fighters like Islam Makhachev, Arman Tsarukyan, and even Justin Gaethje aren't just bigger, they're used to dealing with serious knockout power. The shots that drop Volk might not have the same effect on natural bigger opponents. And if Ilia can't bully guys physically like he does at featherweight, then he's going to have to rely more on his technique, speed, and his fight IQ. Another thing to consider is reach. Yeah, Ilia knocked out Jai Herbert in his UFC lightweight debut, but before that, Jai was giving him some serious problem with his length and striking. He kept Ilia at range, landed clean shots, and even had him hurt at one point. That's something to think about, because lightweight is full of long, dangerous strikers who even hit harder. If Jai was able to do that to him, imagine what a Dustin Poirier, a Justin Gaethje, or a Rafael Fiziev could do. Closing the distance won't be as easy, and if he gets caught forcing his way inside, he could pay for it. And as for Topuria's wrestling and jiu-jitsu, they're solid, but we've seen him struggle against stronger grapplers before. Bryce Mitchell, for an example, was able to take him down and control him in moments before Ilia turned it around. Now imagine him dealing with a grappler monster at lightweight, guys like Islam Makhachev or a Gamrot, who are stronger, have elite chain wrestling, and relentless top control. If Ilia gets taken down at 155, is he getting back up? That's something we don't know. With all that being said, I'm not betting against him. Ilia's boxing is elite, and his shot selection is some of the best in the game. His power should still translate, and if he works on his movement and defensive wrestling, he could absolutely make waves at 155. The key is picking the right fights early, not jumping straight into a nightmare matchup. If he plays it smart, build momentum, and keeps improving, he's got the tools to give lightweights problems. But let's be real, when we're talking about the elite of the elite, where things get tricky is going to be Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, and Islam Makhachev. These guys know how to use their reach, their striking, and their grappling to control the fight. But they can take him down, reset it, dominate from top position, and when it comes to kicks, we saw what Jai Herbert was able to do before he got caught. So yeah, Topuria is a beast, but lightweight is a whole different animal in my opinion.